Alright, so changing a lower ball joint on the Jeep Liberty Sport. First thing you're going to need is a 19 millimeter socket to take off and remove the lug nuts. This is the tool you're going to need as an impact gun. 19 millimeter socket will remove your lug nuts. And here you have an impact gun. It's electric, it's not pneumatic, but it has the power to push with more pounds of pressure than you could with your hand with a ratchet or a wrench. So this all right, y'all, I'm getting ready to remove these lug nuts now. I do them like that, get them loose, then I'll spin them all off. Like so. That's one. What I'll do is set these aside inside a soft box or a container. Now that's the lug nut removal. 19 millimeter socket. Impact sockets is what I use. Tire off. And let me check the wear and tear on this tire. That might be where the noise is coming from, because it seems that this tire is a little low on the other side, but it got excellent tread on it. The middle two tracks are higher than the outer tires. You see it's higher here. So you see how that's bumping into that with your finger? I could use a popsicle stick and rub it across, and you can see that it's grabbing. So this tire, this might be where some of the noise is coming from, but let's get this ball joint off of here. That is the center axle nut. Brakes. I'm gonna take the caliper off, lift off the caliper off the rotor, pull the rotor off, then I'm gonna begin to tackle this job. These are the upper control arms here, one there, one there. I'm gonna send it to the shop and have them do that. So let me just show you the ball joint. The lower ball joint is here. See that? And you can see the bushing is busted. And water is getting in there. That means all the grease is out of it. And I'm gonna go ahead and tackle this and get this off of here. Now what you want to do is turn the wheel so you can make sure that you have access to these caliper brackets. It's 2 bolts. Let's jump into it. All right, so I'm gonna slide this caliper bracket off the brake, off the rotor. If it allows me. Brakes might be pressed on it. Well, that's what I brought the hammer out for. Rubber hammer. Sometimes you can't get your bracket off of there, which I might have to do, and I didn't want to, is take the brake shoes off. All right, y'all, so I removed the brake caliper. From the bracket. Normally it should slide right off without taking the pads apart, so that's what I did. So now the bracket will just come right off. Here's your brake bracket right there. Set that aside and take off your rotor. Now you have access to all your parts. All right, blower ball joint is right here. And let's get into it. So on your breaker bar, you can put your leverage bar. Right here is your jack handle. Take it off your hydraulic jack, put it on here, spin it, loosen it up. Now once you get that loosened, you will no longer need that. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I got that like that. There is an easy way to get that off of there if you had your chisel out here, but I don't have it. But take this off, the bolts off, then I'll use the same socket for the rest of those. All right, so I'm using a 22 millimeter socket on this upper control arm bolt, but this is not the one to go to it. It's a little too big. I actually used this 13/16. I had to tap it on there. It was real tight, and I didn't put it all the way. That way I get it off. And I broke it with the breaker bar. Now I took it off so I can ratchet it off with a 22, which is too big to use, but it's gonna work. All right, so I put the ratchet on, got the 22-inch millimeter socket, and I'm going to remove the upper ball joint bolt. Take your time, that way nothing slips, and then you don't ring off none of your bolts. Now that you got that gap in between there, I'm gonna give you some advice. Hit it with some lubricant right there, and it'll run down through the bolt. So let that sit on there for about a minute or two, and that'll let that grease soak inside of that bolt, and then it should come down. Make it easier to come off. So let me show y'all. All right, right here, this is what I was doing. I took and loosened this up, left about a ½ inch gap between there, and put some oil in there, and it'll go down between the threads, and it should be easy to spin off. Then I'm gonna tap up this upper control arm on this, and this should drop down. Once this comes off, this will drop down, and then I can pull off of this wheel hub assembly and get this raggedy ball joint out of here. All right, so some of these have castle nuts on them. This one doesn't, and usually the lower does. That's normally whenever if it comes from the factory, never been changed, but some makers don't even use the castle nuts no more. They just have a so-called locking bolt. All right, everybody, so I'm removing this. I'm removing this upper control arm bolt. Once I find my ratchet that I was using right here, I got a few ratchets out here. I'm gonna show you all my tools that I used out here and some of my tools that I got on hand. All right. You could use the breaker bar to make it a little easier. It'll give you some leverage. Or you can use on your ratchet, so you can go back and forth, your jack bar, your hydraulic jack bar. For those of y'all just tuning in, I'm loosening up the upper control arm bolt and nut. Now, once it becomes easy to turn, you could take off your leverage bar. All right. And spin it off with just a ratchet. It's not a castle nut, but that bolt is out of there, right inside of their socket. Set that aside. All right, now what we're going to do is bang out from the bottom and the top. We're going to tap on these control arms. You're going to take your hammer. You're going to tap on. She is loose. And that is loose like so. All right, so here it is with this heavy hammer. And you want to hit on this side, front, tap it on the back. So you tap, tap, tap. Like you'll hit it here, then move over here to hit it, then hit it here. And all you're doing is loosening up this upper control arm so it lifts up out of there. All right, so once you tap on this, you're gonna knock everything loose in there, and then you can lift this up, and then this wheel hub assembly is gonna drop down, and then you could take off the rest of the bolts. All right, so in order to get out the lower control arm ball joint bolt, well, the nut's off, so in order to get the bolt out, you want to smack the side of here. All can come on the other side if you want to, but I choose to just do one side. 1 whack, 2 whack, 3 whack. I said 2 whack. Y'all ready? Now watch this. See it jumping? That means it's loose. So what I'm gonna do is get something like this, put it up top, and hammer down. No dropping down. So what I'm gonna do is go get my crowbar and I'm gonna pry that. All right, so after all that pounding on in that side of that metal where the bolt is for the lower ball joint, it's actually the lower ball joint bolt. You can lift this straight up after tapping off at each side. So I'm gonna lift this up. There is the ball joint bolt. Well, let's see what she looked like. Well, let's just say this, people. The bolt doesn't look broke, but the bushing is gone, which means there's no more grease in it. So now we got to go ahead and take off this this control arm. Ready? Now, only way to get this off, I got to loosen up this bolt. So I'm going to slap this back in this pin back in this hole to get to the axle bolt. Hang on, stay with me. All right, now it's time to spin off the center bolt. Now I'm going to put this back in the upper control arm just so I can get to this bolt. Let's see if I can hand turn this off. That way I'll know how much pressure is on this. Because they say you need a torque tool. I don't have one. And they said you're going to need to put that pry bar on there. I'll be right back. I need some leverage. All right, y'all, so here it is. The CV axle is out, and this is the wheel hub. Right there, that's the wheel hub. And that under the bottom pin, that's the ball joint. Now, in some cases, you can't get your compress machine to go around the old ball joint if the ball joint didn't break off and you still got the bolt attachment, and this go on and everything doesn't line up to where you could take it off. You got to cut off the bolt. So I'm going to cut off this bolt right now, and I'm going to show you all the bolt that I'm cutting off right now. Hold on, and I'm going to get back to the video. So this is where I'm going to cut at, right in here, and that'll allow my tool spacer to get in there. I can use a shorter spacer and to push that ball joint out of there. It's going to go this way. So when you put the cap on here, and I'm going to show you the cap that I want to use. I want to use this one here, and then put the cap on the other end, the flat head end, put the C-clamp compressor on here, and push, and it'll go out to the left side. But I'm going to attempt to cut this right now. I'm going to cut it off. And you see where the boot is tore? I'm going to cut that off right in there. All right, let's see what happens. Hopefully this saw's teeth are sharp enough to cut this. one thing you don't want it doing is moving. So I'm gonna have to get as close to it as I can. And it is cutting, but I need this held so it doesn't go anywhere. It's kind of hard to do unless I move a little closer. Move a little closer and then put my knee on it. Let it hang out about that far and then cut. Remove the grease to see if the blade is cutting, and I hope the blade is cutting. It's only one way to tell. I try to cut this tooth off of it. It wants to cut. And it is cutting through, but it is taking a good minute, so let's get into it. Now let's see if we've been doing any damage. It's actually hard to tell if we've been doing any cutting. There's a lot of grease in there. We're gonna continue to keep cutting. So you basically know what I'm doing. I'm cutting this. I'm gonna cut this camera because I don't want to waste no footage. Lower ball joint is out. I used a compressor, pushed it out this way. It came out, cleaned all of this out of there with sandpaper, and I'm going to attempt to put the new one in, which it is this one here. There's no castle nut with a cotter pin. It's just straight locking bolt. It's going to go in here. Heads up. If you ever want to buy ball joints, do not buy the ones with the grease attachment nipple on it. All right, do not buy one with the grease attachment nipple on it. So when this goes in here, it's basically going to go this way. Do not buy the grease nipple where you got to get these greased, because the boots are not greased when you buy the nipple ones. Some of them aren't, some are. Buy the ones that are pre-greased, you're good to go. So this is going to go in here like so. When we compressed it, it pushed it out. Now we're going to reverse it so it pushes inward. Let's rock and roll, and I'll show y'all what it looks like when it's done. It's hot out here, so I'm going to have to end this video. All right, y'all, so I'm about to put this lower ball joint back on. All right, got the impact gun. Got the ball joint press. And it's a little rinky-dink setup, meaning you gotta put this together how you see fit. And this is what you do. All right, we're gonna put this cup over this nipple, like so. I told y'all it's rinky dink. Everything is heavy. All right, so basically, yeah, it's a little corny setup. Put this in here, and I'm gonna wind this down some, and this will catch on this plate. Y'all ready? I'm gonna run it with this gun. Now I backed off so I can see if I got it on straight and parts flying everywhere. Oh, I hate that. Here we go. This is almost in there. And I did what I didn't want to do. I tore the boot. Oh, I gotta take this back out. Cut the camera.